Hey,
What's up,
how you
bro?
doing? I'm doing good.
All right. Welcome, everybody. Oh, man, I don't want my little share thing around, but it's kind of
Yeah.
too early anyway. But how are you, bro? How you doing, man?
Well, I just made it home in time. I just made it home in time. Just made it home. Ooh,
How's everything going, bro?
good,
I
good.
gotta just put this up real quick. Hope everybody's doing well tonight.
Yep. Anyway, aloha no everyone. Today is the 16th of February. It's about 6:48 p.m. Welcome to the Mel and Charlie show here on Facebook Live. Tonight, our esteemed guests will be the House Representatives, State of Hawaii, from Districts 14, 15, and 16, Representative D. Morikawa, James Tokioka, and Nadine Nakamura. And we'll be discussing in length many of the different bills that's being presented during this legislative session. But more importantly, Bill 1286, House Bill 1286, to get their insight, why it's being introduced, and hopefully those of you out there that asked for us to bring them on can have your questions reviewed and sent over to them, hopefully on air. So I'm going to try to catch as many of them as possible and be sending them over to them. But welcome you all. Welcome you all. And before we do anything else, I'd like to take this opportunity since we are live to give you a great big mahalo from the bottom of my heart. Yesterday and today, I was still, all weekend, really, I was still inundated with birthday well wishes and just nice memories. And I just like to say, it was a little emotional for me. I didn't think I would have gotten that way, but yet many of you have brought up times when we played music over at the Kauai Steakhouse, or when we did something way a long time ago, and brought up memories of how younger I was back then and how slower I move now since I'm at that age. But nevertheless, I can't thank you enough. So I just like to say mahalo, mahalo, mahalo. What about you,
Thanks,
brother Mel?
Charlie. I'm glad you had a good birthday, and I'm doing well, doing great. It was a busy day as usual.
Good.
Um, Got to share some time today with former council chair Ikaika Anderson, who was on the island. So I got a chance to catch up with him for a while. It was a nice conversation. Other than that, it's just real quick before we go on, before we bring on the guests. I see Representative Morikawa and Tokioka are in the waiting room. So we
Good.
realizing this is in some cases, very emotional issue. It's a very uh, controversial issue. Bill 1280, HB 1286 is House Speaker Psyche's attempt to basically unify the state in travel policy. So for those of you that don't know, and I'll let Representative Morikawa, who was one of the introducers of the bill, go more into detail, but basically what it is they want a unified statewide policy for travel restrictions. What the
Mhm.
bill spells out is that uh, anyone from Trans-Pacific, from the mainland, can fly into Hawaii and on any island with a single pre-test 72 hours before they arrive. Obviously, the test they have to have a negative result, but that's it. You get that test, and and that test would be sufficient to avoid any type of second test or quarantine. That's already happening on Oahu and Maui. Oahu and Maui are already doing the safe travel program. The Big Island is a little different. They do a post-arrival test. Kauai, obviously, we have the travel bubble. We have an opportunity for our visitors to quarantine in a resort bubble for 3 days, take a test. If they get a negative result, they get to be exempt from the rest of the quarantine. Anyone else has to quarantine for 10 days. So Speaker Psyche says that that's too confusing for our visitors, so he wants to do away with that, take away the mayor's powers to implement travel restrictions or travel policy for their individual counties. So, of course, he goes in to say that if they go to if they do quarantine, if they don't have the test result, if they got to quarantine, they got to pay for it, blah blah blah. But the gist of the bill is to really take away the power from the individual mayors on the different islands in the different counties to implement their own travel restrictions. So that's where we're at. I'm going to ask you guys again. This is just a one warning: be professional, be polite with your comments. If I see or Charlie sees any inappropriate comments, then you get blocked. It's that simple. All right. We these three representatives are coming on to share, and we appreciate their time. Whether we agree or disagree, uh, let's have some spirited discussion. Let's have some professional discussion, and we'll all get along fine. There's no right and wrong. I mean, really, depending on what side of the aisle you're on. And I'm not talking about party aisle. This is absolutely non-political or non-partisan. This is just an issue. Some of us believe that we want to keep our people safe. So anyway, that's kind of the preface to the show. I want to say I thank them for coming on, agreeing to come on. I know a lot of people don't want to come on our show, but to get them all on the show on the same night, awesome. Any thoughts, Charlie, before we bring them in? Charlie?
Sorry,
Oh,
I was on mute.
you got me nervous,
And
bro. You got me nervous.
well, I am so appreciative to all of them for agreeing to come on tonight. And I like we've always said, we'll just bring the facts to the forefront and let them explain, and you know, um, then the people can hear it straight. I don't want to say the word horse's mouth, but that's that old adage, right? Hear it straight from the horse's mouth. So
Yeah.
we'll get them in here soon, and we'll
I
have a
hope
good
you guys
discussion.
enjoy this beard because tomorrow morning it's coming off.
Well, I sorry I look what's the word, disheveled. Um, I was up since 4, working since 5, and I just made it under the wire to get in front of all of you. At 6:30, just came flying in the house. Didn't have a chance to so good thing we're virtual and we're away from each other because but anyway, I'm gonna take a nice hot shower when this is done tonight.
You got your share thing, Charlie? Mine is,
Yes,
and
yes.
I just
And please, folks, there'll probably be those who would like to see this um, later on. I would. Here you go. Share, share, share. Okay. And I would like to say I am very thankful to Dr. Michael Osterholm and his staff. I got a response back from them. They're very courteous and appreciated the invite. But as you can well imagine, he's the advisor for the Biden team for the COVID, and because of his expertise, Michael Osterholm, uh, unfortunately, he won't be able to come on because this is he's just sought after individual, and would have been nice to have him. Just the recent articles that came out written by him regarding vaccines, regarding the variants. And he put out a warning today that, in the next 6 to 14 weeks, we just better hold on tight because it's gonna be one heck of a roller coaster ride. But if we just be disciplined enough, we'll be okay. That's all. I think that's what they're talking about. Just be disciplined enough. We'll be all
and
right.
remember, this is the same doctor, the epidemiologist from the University of Minnesota that's been studying pandemics forever and epidemiology. This doctor back on March 10th of
Predicted,
2020, right
predicted.
when everything was starting, and everybody was still there were some people that still thought that it was going to pass with the hot weather and he made the prediction back in 2020 on March 10th, live on YouTube. I posted it on my page today. You can find it there, where he said that this virus, within 6 to 12 months, could kill up to 480,000 people. Wow. Wow. That's just how they are. These guys are smart. Anyway, okay, here we go, guys. Let's bring them all in at the same time, and they fall where they fall. Hey, Nadine, one of the rules is you got to smile.
Hey, Mel.
Hi,
How you doing?
Good, good, good. Hi, Dee.
Wow, your beard's really growing out.
Yeah, I'm shaving it tomorrow, though, so.
How many months is that of growth?
I don't think I've shaved since shaved it off since the pandemic, but I've kept it trimmed, but it's kind of long and gets in the way. When I eat Simon, the noodle gets stuck right here. And... Hi, Dee. I don't think you heard me the first time.
Hi, Charlie.
Hello, aloha, everyone. Yeah, I wish I had hair on my face to grow, but it's been like this for the last 62 years, so it's going to stay this way. That's the Chinese side of the bloodline, I guess.
All right. Well, thank you all. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Appreciate, I know trying to get 3 representatives together on the same night is difficult. We appreciate you guys making the time. Obviously, as I emailed, we did want to discuss House Bill 1286, which is moving along. Wanted to, we've had a lot of questions from our viewers, and we felt what better way than to have the House of Representatives, our delegation here, and apologize to those on other islands. You can have your representatives contact us. We'll gladly have them on the show. But we felt that we only have 3 here, so we could get them all on and share the discussion. So thank you for making the time. I know everybody's busy. So without further ado, obviously that Representative Dee Morikawa.
Hi.
Representative Nadine Nakamura. And
Aloha.
Tokioka. Okay, main thing they can hear them. So why don't we get started? Dee, let's start with you since you were one of the introducers of HB 1286, and you can give us kind of an overview of how it happened and what's the status and where we headed from now. What's the process going forward?
Sure. This bill was pretty much an idea that came out of the House COVID committee. And it was just to get a more consistent policy in place because we realized that just one island being different caused confusion for the whole state. And so I told Speaker Saiki that I would sign up to this because, as you know, I am part of leadership. And to me, this is a policy that spurs the conversation. This is why we are all talking about it today, right? But that doesn't mean that this bill is going to become law. It just starts that conversation and tries to figure out if there is a middle ground, if there is a way that we can please the counties, the state, and if we can make sure that the resources everybody needs is in place and available. But after the first hearing, and let me remind you that this passage of this bill won't happen any earlier than I think April, because that's when session ends at the end of April. So a lot can happen. It still has to go over to the Senate, has to be fully vetted on that side. So this is just like I said, hey, everybody's opportunity. This is your public input time. So I think after that first hearing, the Chair Ichiyama put a 3-page purpose section into the bill, which gives a lot of history about pandemics as a whole. And it just kind of made people remember that what we are losing is not just about businesses, but it's about revenue, state revenues. And we all know that the state funds a lot of things on all islands, no matter what your population is. If you need help, like Kauai got that $100 million to deal with their flood, hey, everyone stepped up and Kauai got it. We still appreciate that assistance today because that's going to help us with the Waimea levee, which is in trouble right now with the new flood maps, the flood zone maps. And I think Kauai is going to be able to improve a lot of their waterways. So we have to remember, and I stand by Speaker Psyche, we are one state. Even if we're separated by water, we are one state. And I think for me, that is what I'm thinking about, is how do we make sure that we all have the same message.
So Dave, if you could just kind of explain the substance of the bill. I kind of talked about it before you all came on. What would this bill achieve? It appears right now that the only island that would be impacted would be Kauai.
Yes.
That's the only island that would be the change would occur on. So if you could just touch on the substance of the bill.
So Safe Travels allows anyone who wants to take a pre-test to avoid quarantine to take that test, get their results before they jump on the plane. Okay, when the bill first started, the demand for tests was so great that there wasn't a way that you could mandate 2 tests. It was very hard to get the test in place, but perhaps today it's different. And who knows, the bill might be able to change to accommodate some of those concerns. But anyway, now the tests are more readily available, and perhaps the test that will be required, the second test, may not cost as much as the first test. We all know that pre-test is $150 around that area, and that's per person. And for children over the age of 5, everyone must test in order to get out of the quarantine. So Maui has, I don't even know what the process is, but I heard that Maui kind of wants you to upload some kind of program so they can track you. Big Island, I heard, I don't know if it's true, has a second test option, not option, but they give you a second test, but it's free. Kauai is the only one that's in the bubble. And I talked to a local resident and I realized that they had to have the family in the bubble because that was the only way they could bring a very sick person home to visit the family. So they paid all that money and it wasn't cheap. You all know that it wasn't cheap. But those are the things, those instances that we deal with, the stories that people don't hear. But later on, they'll probably say, oh, poor thing. Yeah, it's okay. In that instance, it's okay. So we really need to be consistent about this. Do we have anyone getting different treatment? I don't know. Actually, I really don't know what's going on in Kauai. I know what the rules are. I struggled. The first 3 times I traveled, I didn't get it right. Finally, I think now I seem to pass through pretty good. It's okay. It's very expensive, but that's okay. But that's all it is. And now if you don't have your test in hand when you arrive because of some unforeseen circumstance during your travel, you will be given the option to take another test. And you need to be quarantined until those results come back. But this bill will assure that your quarantine expenses are at your cost. You pay for everything. And if you are found positive, more so, you need to pay for everything to be quarantined and isolated. And that's pretty much the gist of this bill.
Thank you, Dee. We'll go alphabetical because that's how I posted you guys on had nothing to do with anything other than alphabetical. So Nadine, your thoughts?
Thanks, Mel and Charlie, for having all of us on this show. Yeah, I had mixed feelings, but in the end, I voted no on the floor last week. I'm concerned about the one-size-fits-all policy, and I have listened to the concerns of my constituents who I think the majority of whom are concerned about this bill and the impacts. But I want to thank Dee as well, because there is the other voice, and that's the voice of the 9.3% who are unemployed, the businesses that are really suffering. In January, we heard from the Kauai Chamber of Commerce that 50% of the businesses might close on Kauai in 2 to 3 months. And this was in January. So since then, Congress passed additional funds for the nation. And I think businesses have now a second round of PPP loans that I think will help to help businesses to make it through for at least 5 to 6 months. And so it's a tough call because we're trying to balance the limited number of beds on Kauai, ICU beds on Kauai, with trying to address this issue of our high unemployment and closure of businesses. So it's a really fine line, and I think we're all aware of the issues on both sides. And we're trying to find a way forward. And the good news is that Kauai is very aggressive about vaccinations, and that's great. There's as more people get vaccinated, it's going to help bring down the numbers. It's something that I think Dee mentioned, that this bill will not be fast tracked. This bill is going to go through the legislative process. It's starting off in the House, and it needs to cross over and go through the Senate. There's a lot of things that can happen along the way. And when the legislature ends at the end of April, the governor will have something like 45 days to decide whether or not he's going to sign the bill, veto the bill, or let it go without his signature. And then at that point, the legislature will decide what to do. But by then, it'll be mid-June, July maybe. And by then, I think a good number of people will be vaccinated. So, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. Even, there's a long way to go, as Rep. Morikawa said. There's a long way to go. And this is the chance for people to weigh in, and people have been, so we really appreciate that.
Well, I like to say before we go on, just to let you know, if you have your Facebook up, there's a lot of responses already coming across, but we do have a fair equal amount of viewers that's not from Kauai, that's from all islands. So sometimes we may get a question that may not be targeted for Kauai, but for maybe Maui or the Big Island or Oahu. So just wanted to let you three know about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Jimmy, your thoughts, and then we'll open it up for some questions and some discussion here with some of our viewers.
Sorry about that. I was strongly opposed to the bill, and a lot of different reasons. I'll share with you the information that I received. First of all, Mal, I served on the county council with you. I've always been a home rule guy. And I think in this instance, even though I come from the hotel industry, I spent most of my life in the hotel industry, managing restaurants and hotels. So I want to see the hotels back running, occupied, and employees working, but I want to see it safely. So, I strongly oppose the bill, but I'm also working on a different plan, a plan that would have additional testing on Kauai. And I know Dee talked about it earlier, the testing, but we are now in the discussions with a local boy, Punahou graduate, who has an incredible has had an incredible career, although he's very young. I think he's 52 years old. He works out of Irvine, California. His company name is Kahala Bioscience, I'm sorry. So he's developing a test. He's already gone through the protocols, waiting for the EUA and the approval from the FDA. And the game changer on this test would be the price. The price would run, because he's trying to get the economy open in Hawaii and specifically trying to do a pilot project after he gets approvals for Kauai, would run between $8 and $10. That does not include the medical technician who needs to be there to verify that it's Mel Raposo or Charlie Leona whose test it is. We need to figure out the trusted partnerships in the hotels on how they administer the test. But you come in, you take a additional test depending on when you took the first test, whether it's 72, 48, 24 hours before you left. So, you know, I oppose taking away home rule, but I'm not just going to say I oppose that and not try to do anything else to support opening up travel. Yes, there is some confusion with tourists, but, you know, I think when you are a resident on Kauai, and you know, I get the emails, and I'll share some of that information with everybody. I send us a survey every year now, and I think you and Charlie know that. And I got back about, I don't know, almost 400 surveys of the surveys that we sent out, and it's still coming in. And some of them come in a form that I send out, and some of them come back in an email. And I can tell you that the emails that I got back, one of the questions was open Kauai travel and is it a priority? So it was 6 different questions in the survey, and guess where opening up travel came in the survey? Absolute last, number 6. 44% of the people, of the 300 people that, almost 400 people that sent in the survey, said that opening up travel was not important. Okay, so that's one part of the survey. The emails that I believe both Dee and Nadine got regarding specifically House Bill 1286, we tracked that too. So in opposition of the emails that I got since the bill came out, I got 99 emails in opposition, 20 in support of House Bill 1286. This was an important question for me. Would you want visitors to take the second test when they come back? Some people fill out different parts of the survey. Some people don't fill them out, all of them out. There were 299 people who sent back, which was 84% of the surveys that answered that question. 84 people said they definitely want tourists to take the second test, or anybody coming back to Kauai to take the second test. So that tells me that if we're gonna do it like Honolulu does it, then people are not for that. People are not for House Bill 1286. People who opposed it was 9%, and people who were neutral, we gave them that option too, was 7%. Mel, I don't know how to do this, so I texted you the picture earlier. I don't know, you a lot more tech savvy than me, but these are the surveys that I get back, and I just want people to see them if you can put it up, because I do this every year before session, when session starts. And it gives me a good pulse of what people are thinking. And I did the questions prior to House Bill 1286.
Yeah, I had.
Okay. It's not that high tech. I could have done that.
Yeah, hang on real quick. This is, unfortunately, I couldn't get the, it'll pop up to my speaker view pretty soon. But anyway, that's kind of the picture that you sent me. I got a problem getting from an iPhone to a Dell laptop, but.
Okay. Well, I'm glad that I'm not the only one who's technology challenged. So this is the situation now. The Hawaii Tourism Authority is working on the plan that I'm talking about. The doctor came to the Capitol. He went to called myself and Senate President Kochi. He went to Kochi's office to do the test. It's like a pregnancy test, and it takes from start to finish maybe 10 or 15 minutes. If that's a game changer. I set up a meeting with General Hara, the Department of Health, and the Attorney General's office, and they were all impressed with the test. So when this thing is approved, we can roll it out faster. I know that Dr. Dubé, who is Kahala, the CEO of Kahala Bioscience, I know he's met with and talked to Dr. Berriman. He's ran the test through Hawaii Pacific Health and Queens, and they've all acknowledged that this test is accurate. So once we get the approvals, that's the game changer, is the price. The price of, having a test that you can get for $8 to $10, not including the technician, which in the case of some of these hotels, and I think for the county could possibly use CARES Act money of the second round. So for local people coming back, in the case of the hotels would have to pay for that technician. And I've talked to Dan King, I've talked to Paul Toner, talked to Chip Behoot. And, as I think Dee and Nadine said earlier, if this bill passes, it's not going to be till April or May. And I don't know if it's going to be upon approval. I would think it would be. A lot of times July 1st or January 1st are the dates that we use in bills to have the start date. But, I'm not going to go say no to something as important with this without having another direction. And I think this is something that I'm excited about. And hopefully it comes to fruition. I hate to overpromise and underdeliver. That's why I didn't want to get, I'm not getting into a lot of the details, but it is a direction that we're working on. So thank you for sharing the picture and for the opportunity to explain my vote.
Thank you. A couple of questions off the bat. The first, because you mentioned the governor. The governor, obviously, it goes to him at the end. I did see him on one of the interviews on TV probably a month ago, whenever this first surfaced, and he didn't sound like he supported the one size fits all. He specifically mentioned the hospital capacity here on Kauai. Do any of you know if that position, the governor's position, has changed, or where he's at right now?
That's the position he's had. Things change as bills move and the timing of different things. Like if this test got approved, I don't think he would approve the bill if this additional testing got approved.
But just as it stands today, does anyone know if his position has changed from the last time where he didn't believe in the one size fits all? Because he plays a critical part. Obviously at some point he's going to have to make that decision.
Absolutely.
No, I think the governor's position is the status quo, because if he wanted to change it, he could have. And he has made these decisions along the way that pretty much supports Kauai's situation now. If he wanted to change it, he could.
And Mel, let me just add that there's talk about exempting vaccinated travelers. The governor is kind of talking about that. This bill would not allow that if it passes, because there's not language in there that allows for that kind of exemption. This bill is just black and white, and that's it. And that's very, it's scary when you just jump on a plane just because you had your shots. You don't know. We all don't know if we can spread it. It is scary. Exactly.
That's a whole different discussion, I tell you. We've been having that discussion for a few nights. The other concern, I guess, because legislatively, you're talking about this getting done at the end of the session. If there's an issue with Kauai or any island for that matter, it would take the legislature to have to reconvene to make any changes, correct?
I think there's a part in there that allows the Department of Health to step in too,
Okay.
So that's still there. But let me just remind you guys that this bill expires at the end of this year.
I know. I saw that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So okay. No, it's all good. You know, it's again, you know, we just want to get clarity. We get Charlie and I, and I'm sure all of you get bombarded with questions. And the best way to get the answers is to have you folks here to answer the questions. So we appreciate.
Well, it's
Let-
more of the stories that come in that really jerk your heart, right? The stories of people that are really struggling because
Yeah,
they can't.
yeah, we hear those too, and it's just a difficult balance that we gotta find, and yeah, it's tough. Charles?
Yeah. So say, for clarification, I'm just going to throw this out there. Say this bill does pass. I would assume now that there'll be great detail into tracking all the data that's going to come from this bill, because I'm pretty sure there's going to have a lot of data available of what works and what doesn't work, right? Because this will be the platform. Whether who's ever coming in, you're going to have X numbers came through the system and they were positive, and then you're going to have some that says X number came in and they were negative. The positives, even though they had a pretest, you've got all that data available. So what you're saying is that by December 31st, this bill will sunset. It'll go away, right? So would it be the legislature's position? And again, I'm just asking that if this was to work out in favor of getting that raw data that's helpful for everyone, to implement another bill, or how would it work once it sunsets?
I don't think we want to have to legislate this kind of stuff. It really, it should be something that is done by the Department of Health, by the governor. Set the policy. Don't let everyone go all over the place, because if I'm confused, I agree that a lot of travelers are confused. And let's remember, these travelers are not necessarily tourists. They're family, they're students, they're some maybe just residents wanting to go away and come back, who knows? But it's not just about tourists. But I will say, when inter-island travel opened up for that short period of time, the traffic up in Kauai started to come back slowly. The shrimp station, the taco place down in Waimea, they opened up, and there you see JoJo's, you see tourists, actually not tourists, but visitors. They were all inter-island visitors, because trout fishing was open and they were starting to come back and spend their money. And then when we shut down, well, that for the businesses, I know they hurt. They hurt
So if
bad.
we're looking at this from the standpoint, and this is, I'm going to pose this to all three of you. If we are looking at this from the standpoint that it should be regulated by the DOH, the Department of Health, have they given any indications at this given time if they want to get involved, or are they just letting this go by the wayside and they'll see whatever turns out, whatever happens in the legislature happens? Has Dr. Char and her team said anything?
Not, they have been having conversations, the governor and legislature. But there's the emergency, whatever you call it, on each island, the
Proclamation.
General Hara and his group, they're heavily involved also, because a lot of it is federal guidelines and federal monies. So they're in the picture too. So they all have to work together. But when you have the mayors stepping up to defend their counties, most of the time you respect that, right? And I think that's probably where the governor was coming from. You know your island best, you do what you think is best. My problem with this whole thing is when is the time for us to open up on Kauai? Our numbers are really low. Our kids are still not back to school full time. So that makes the parents' childcare a necessity, or they can't go to work. And then one more thing, without being employed, you're not contributing to our tax base at all. We're only dishing out unemployment, but nothing is coming in. This money is all being borrowed that we're going to have to pay back in the future. And people want to get back to work. They really do. This is depressing.
No, but again, and I appreciate the response. I'm just saying from the standpoint of a layperson trying to understand to help our viewers, because I'm looking at a lot of the questions here. You know, if one of the key players is the Department of Health, I mean, I just heard something today watching an interview that was done on KITV with Adjutant General Hara, and you know, he emphatically stated that he wants the DOH to buy into, you know, this program, but it's right now they're just hesitant, and I'm just trying to understand why is there a hesitancy? I mean, usually if a department is hesitant, they'll say this is the reason why. Just like how all of you had put your you know, the reasons why you're for or opposed, and you gave a reason why. And I guess he's asking that, and it seems like right now everything is held up in limbo between those two divisions. And I kind of would like to know why the Department of Health too wouldn't want to buy into something that probably could be problem solving and or could benefit the state.
You know, Charlie, I'm sure they are.
Mhm.
I didn't see. I'm not in the health committee this year, and I didn't see the testimony from the Department of Health or any of the other departments, but on House Bill 1286. Now, a lot of times they'll just say, you know, it's up to the legislature, it's their purview. But you were talking about the sunset date of the bill, which is
Right.
the end of the year.
Right.
But I wouldn't put too much credence in that, because if you look at the effective date, it's I think 2030 or 50 or something like that. So, I mean, that those dates change because they want this bill to go to conference so that we can figure out whatever types of changes need to be made. So that's why you put the defective date in there.
Okay.
The effective date is a good date. It's a clean date, but this bill, if it doesn't change, it'll go to conference, and both sides will be able to iron out whatever other concerns come up between now and then.
Okay.
I know in the I know it passed with amendments. When I saw the text on the Capitol website, I noticed the original draft had a section in there about the incident commander having the ability or the authority to grant automatic exemptions to quarantine. Is that still in the bill, or was that removed?
It's still in the bill, but it's still something that he can do right now.
So,
You know, General Hara can give exemptions right now.
okay. Now, the overall expectation, what is the expectation? I know I'm hearing a few different things, getting people back to work, and when this thing was discussed in the committee, and I think maybe, I'm not sure if Jimmy, I don't know if you had a committee hearing or not, but I know Nadine did, or not sure, but what is the expectation? Is the expectation to get the hotel industry back moving? What is the driving force aside from, I think, to unify the state? I'm not sure. It only impacts Kauai, so there's no unification except for Kauai. What is the true expectation if this bill should pass? And it's for any one of you.
I cannot answer that because I don't have the expectation that it's going to pass. So I'm going to pass on that question.
But I mean, you know, when you pass a bill, it's okay. We want to stimulate the economy. We want to get our hotel workers back to work. What was the reason or the expectation of the committees moving this bill along? I guess.
Gotta unmute, sorry. I think, not I think, traveling right now is really expensive with the test. I think a lot of people don't realize that you can't just get a free test anywhere and expect to travel from island to island. If Oahu was also requiring a pretest, for us, we'd have to pretest here, fly to Oahu, pretest Oahu, fly back to Kauai, pretest any island we go to, back and forth. And every test at $150 is big bucks. No one can afford that. So the option for a second test free or cheap is great. But back then that was not happening, could not happen. But that's not to say it can happen today. All the governor has to do is make that decision. If that's what we want to do, Hawaii, we have these cheaper tests. You pre-test, you fly, you land, you test again, just to make sure. And then, well, however long that test results take, then you're free to go, right? But there's no such thing right now.
I guess I'm a little confused because right now, Honolulu, you don't even need, you just fly into Honolulu. You don't even have to take a pre-test.
Inter-island, yes.
Right. And this impacts inter-island and trans-Pacific. They want a statewide policy. If someone wants to fly to Maui right now, you still got to take a pre-test, right? They're part of the safe travels for inter-island, correct?
Yes.
And likewise for Big Island. So Honolulu is the only one that's different right now where they're open.
Right.
And Kauai is the only one that has, except for the inter-island, it's still the same. It's no different inter-island from Kauai and Maui and the Big Island, correct?
Correct.
Right. So this bill would impact the mainland travel, the mainland visitors, but no one else would change except Kauai. So the cost right now, I can see the cost of the visitor coming to Kauai because they gotta take that test and they gotta stay in a bubble or they can quarantine for 10 days without a test. They don't have to take a test. But if they do take that test, they gotta stay at a resort bubble for 3 days and then take another test to get out. So that's where the expense comes in. But only Kauai, right? No one else requires that.
Right.
Can I ask another question, Mel? And this keeps on popping up because I'm reading it. A lot of our viewers are concerned because of what the CDC guidelines is. And a lot of times right now it's saying, now's not the best time to travel. If the numbers in Hawaii has gone down, is anything with this bill addressing the fact that maybe the travelers that usually frequent Hawaii, like California, they're taking the cue and says, yeah, we have a major outbreak out here, so we don't want to travel. So whether this bill was in place or not, and they don't travel, how do we handle that? I guess that would be my question.
What do you mean by how do we handle them traveling or us letting them travel to Kauai?
Well,
because I
anywhere in Hawaii, because right now we're basically saying that with this bill, we can standardize travel, make it easier, because people can come into Hawaii, right? And we're looking primarily at the Trans-Pacific market. Okay.
I think, Charlie, you bring up a really good point that the CDC guidance right now is, as much as possible, don't travel. That's really the point that they're making, especially with the new virus variants. It's, we don't want that to spread. And then, the other CDC guidance is the post-travel test, 3 to 5 days following arrival to do the second test. So those are two parts of CDC guidance that getting back to your earlier question, Charlie, that I believe that the DOH, they support that. And I think it's being, again, what Mel said, trying to find that balance. And so although DOH may have that position, DOH Honolulu, that is not the governor's position at this point. And that's why the Safe Travels program currently is a one-test program. So
and remember, the cost of the test is a big determining factor of this. Like I said, if it's that $150 test, that's not feasible. But if there is a second inexpensive test, then so be it. Make that a policy.
Right. And I think what we heard from the visitor industry is that most of the travelers who come to Kauai stay for the average is like about 5 days. So, going into a bubble or, waiting for your test results will pretty much take up 3 to, 3 of the 5 days. So it just doesn't make it very feasible for people to want to come.
Let me just ask you real quick. Okay, I know the cost of the tests are expensive, but this bill doesn't address that. This bill still requires the single test, right, before you come. That's not going to change.
No, but it's also saying that you second test if you don't have your test results.
Oh, right.
Right. And remember, it's a choice. That we're not forcing you to pre-test. You choose. You can be infected, jump on the plane and land and quarantine.
Yeah.
Nothing stops you from doing that.
Yeah. Okay. So it's just you're only talking about for those that come over and maybe never got their results.
Yes.
That they'll have an opportunity to pay for a second test.
Yes.
No, that's just one part of it, though. That's not the whole part.
Yeah. No, I understand. And the reason I wanted to talk about the expectation is because I think, and I'll go ahead and do this right now. I did a real quick, and this is going to go real quick, guys. Don't even. Hang on. This was just some dates for our viewers and for everyone to just see some of the dates in our COVID timeline here on. We all know March was the first confirmed cases on all the islands. Mayor Derek did the nighttime curfew starting March 20th. But the most important dates, I think I highlighted in red, 2 dates. We know that the governor was talking about safe travels for a while. He was talking about them from back in May, but because of the numbers and the increasing cases, he kept pushing it off. But officially, October 15th, safe travels opened up. And then on November 27 is when Kauai said, hey, you know what? This ain't working for Kauai. This is not working. This whole safe travel one test system is not working. And this is why. Since October 15, and this is where I think I've never heard any other county break their numbers down like Kauai did. So while I know a lot of people are upset with our mayor, whatever, I stand behind him with the transparency. But anyway, since October 15, 150 cases on Kauai, 103 were travel related, 69%. 11 were travel associated. Those are the ones that the person never did travel, but came in contact with someone that did. 7%. So 76% of our cases were related or associated to travel. 24% were community transmission. Of the 103 cases, travel cases, not the travel associated, just the travel cases, 53 had negative pre-travel tests that later tested positive while they were on Kauai, 51% of them. 31 of them had positive pre-travel tests, but they didn't receive the results until after they arrived on the island, 30%. So this is why in November, our mayor said, you know what, we want to opt out. This isn't working. Our numbers, you guys all know this, the numbers went ballistic. So we opted out and our numbers are down. Now, yes, there's consequences, and I think I'm going to explain that. But this is the one that I think when we talk about helping tourism and getting our employees back to work at the hotel and the visitor industry and the hospitality industry, this is from January to December of 2020. And you can see January, February was awesome. March started the decline because the cases started to we started to identify some positives. April, May, June, July, all of that's just, we flattened the curve, all right, the wrong curve. But if you look at October 15th is when safe travel started. November and December, you didn't see any kind of major increase in hotel occupancy on any of the islands. Kauai dropped to about 13 or 14%. But if you look at Maui, which is, I gotta get this out of the way so I can. If you look at Maui, which is the gray, and you look at Honolulu, which is the orange, from October on, you didn't see a very big increase. I think the highest is 26% or 28% total as compared to 20% or 21%. So the fact that safe travels uh, if we add Kauai to the safe travels list, what can Kauai expect, I guess, in the way of hotel hospitality? Because I think the bigger problem, and correct me if I'm wrong, any one of you, correct me if I'm wrong, the issue is not so much people not coming because of the quarantine, they just not coming. Otherwise, Honolulu and Maui would have been skyrocketed. Their occupancy would have gone up. Is it not true that the number of travelers have reduced significantly because of CDC guidelines or people just not safe, they're not feeling safe? The point of this graph is that I know a lot of people think, hey, we got to open up Kauai so we can get all our people back to work. But this chart tells us that Honolulu and Maui have absolutely no restrictions. They get one single test prior to arrival. They gotta have a negative test before they arrive in Hawaii 72 hours before. But Honolulu and Maui still flat. Safe travels did not encourage visitors to come because Honolulu and Maui didn't have a quarantine.
Mel, do you have any stats on vacation rentals or any other type of vacation stay? I'm just curious because I know talk has been going around that people are staying in other places and more so on Kauai because the hotels aren't open.
Yeah, well, they're not. If they come and they have to quarantine, they got to quarantine for a time. But my point is that Honolulu and Maui, that's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at what's there. That the data is there. That's straight out of DBED. If in fact safe travels was going to encourage more people to come because we remove a quarantine, then Honolulu and Maui would the numbers would have gone way up. The bigger problem for me, though, Dean, Nadine, and Jimmy, the bigger problem for me is this one right here, and I think you guys are very aware of this. Is this one here? We know on Kauai was the only county that separated the data. I'm sure they all did, but Kauai was the only one that reported it on a daily basis. So this data right here, in fact, I believe is the only accurate data from any county. And again, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is very clear that the one test pre-travel system does not work. And again, I'm very open to criticism, but I'm just saying this is the numbers I got from the Department of Health. This is dangerous, and I think that's what my point is in all of this. Is the risk to go back to this system here for Kauai? Now I'm only talking about Kauai. Is the risk worth it to go get whatever it is, 76% case increase, and the reward in jobs and hotel opening up is very minimal? So that was my only concern.
Mel, I know you're concerned about those things, but like I said, the industry, people not working, the tours, the vacation rentals, you come to the other islands. Well, Oahu, I know for a fact that people are moving all over the place. We're in the loosest tier. Oahu's in a strict tier, but they still have the same freedoms as us, except for some things. But their economy is booming. I was here in special session. Waikiki was dead. Zero, nothing. Now people are slowly moving around. I mean, we all know how to behave. We know what we're supposed to do to protect ourselves. We haven't even tried it on Kauai, so we don't know. Our numbers have been low for a long time. Yes, it works. The policy works, but it's killing the other industries. And I'm sorry, but this is one thing I'm going to stand up against. We gotta bring that economy back. It's slow, it's coming back, but we need someone to make the decision to let's give it a try. If there's a second test available, great, let's do it. Nothing is stopping any county from doing that now. In fact, Kona does it, right?
Yeah, they do a
You
Post
can do
arrival.
it right now. In fact, I saw an article this morning.
let's
Go ahead.
let's be real about the Big Island though, because we've had Miskovich on several times. And you know, when you have private donors dishing out that kind of money, that's why they're able to do the test. And
Exactly.
he himself contributed close to $500,000. Unfortunately, on Kauai, we don't have that. I mean, we've got big pockets on in the Kilauea side. You know who we're talking about, but I haven't. I mean, I've seen it being donated to Hawaii Community Foundation through that means. But as far as a test, I haven't seen anything come through. But I want to ask you this, and this is just a speculative question. I'm sure that there's many that think about it, and this kind of address both sides of the issue here. If okay, say we open up and things still don't change, then what do we do? Then what do we do? If we see numbers spiking, see, my fear is this: if we go down that path and say, okay, we go down that path, it happens. Will the mayor have the ability to say, you know what? We went down this path. Look what happened now. If the governor is not going to make the call, I'm pretty sure the mayor is going to do what he did the first time, and that is, I'm going to close down, put the curfew. Are we prepared for that? Now, I'm only talking about Kauai. I don't know about the other islands, but I'm pretty sure if they get something that goes haywire, because as you know, Dr. Osterholm said today, with these new variants, the next 6 to 14 weeks is going to be very telling what happens. And I'm
That's
pretty
right.
sure, and Dr. Char is watching that very, very closely.
Of course.
And
But
I think,
what
I
are you
mean,
doing to protect yourself? Are you masking up? Are you social distancing? Or are you, and I've seen it on Kauai, we're getting back to that loose because our numbers are so low, our people are not
Mhm.
behaving that way. So we might get into that trouble. But
well,
if
you know,
you do what
we
you're
said,
supposed to do, you won't go there.
well, I
You know,
think,
I tell you, if everybody could follow the simple rules,
mhm.
we wouldn't be having this discussion today. You
I
know, seriously, it's and they post on Facebook on top of that. They share with all the, you know, that bothers me. It does, D. I agree with you.
Now,
It's
I
horrible.
wanna I wanna go back to something you were talking about earlier, and not to say you said, correct me if I'm wrong. Um, you got the numbers from DBED, the hotel occupancy, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so part of the problem in those numbers is a lot of these hotels are closed, like the Hyatt is closed, the Sheraton, and I'm just talking about Kauai. Sheraton Kauai Beach is closed. So those hotels are not reflected in some of those numbers. And to what extent, I don't know. But I have people in the industry, because not every single hotel reports to DBED or HTA their hotel occupancies, the rooms that are out of order. Some of these guys are doing renovations, and you know, if there's a 300 room hotel and they're only selling 100 rooms, the rest are closed. They're not opening it so that they don't have to go back and reclean it. It's a whole different numbers scenario for occupancy percentages from all of the islands. So I think what's important for us, and I talked to some of the hotel guys here on Kauai, is to try to get as many of the hotels and timeshares to participate in just the data. And the other thing with that is some of these hotels are occupied with National Guard guys. So that skews the average length of stay, that skews some of the other stuff. So I think we need to make sure that we're comparing apples to apples when we're doing this. And some of the information I'm getting now for all of the islands, Mel, is not apples and apples. So that's something that I know the visitor industry, hotel operators and timeshare operators are going to try to compile data that's going to be helpful to the mayor and for all of us to make, you know, better decisions on what the real occupancy is. But one of the other things I'm doing too is getting the data from General Hara and the National Guard here, because they have all of that data. They have how many people arrived. They have where they're going to. I spoke with him on Friday. He's going to try to break out that information so we know exactly how many people are coming to Kauai on a daily basis. And I know some of that, all of that information goes to Sukunahoa as well. So we have to put all of our, helping hands together and figure that information out. Because when you're showing data, we need to make sure that we all are comparing apples to apples. But I agree with you 100%. Even if we open up Kauai like Honolulu, it's not that everybody, just because we open it, doesn't mean they're just going to come. The floodgates are going to open. And then it goes back to, because right now, HTA is not marketing Hawaii. They're not. And why would they? Because people are not traveling. So
they don't need to, because Hawaiian Air and Alaska and Southwest, they're doing a great job doing it. So HTA can save their money. I wanted to clarify that Kauai wasn't intended to be used as a baseline on that chart. The whole premise of that chart was to show that from safe travels, from prior to safe travels up until October and afterwards, even after safe travels on Honolulu or on Oahu and Maui, where they don't have a restriction, the impact wasn't significant. That was the
and I hope they're comparing the hotels that are closed and not. But I will agree with you 100% that Kauai did. Dr. Behrman's office did a better job than anybody else in the state.
Jimmy,
compiling the data.
Let me say this. I think, and this is just a suggestion, but who am I, right? I'm just Charlie Iona. But I'm going to say it anyway. Wouldn't it be advisable at this point, because every comment I see that I've been reading has one detriment in mind. It's not so much talking about the travel. It's talking about the unemployment system that needs to be fixed. So if that's the case, wouldn't it be advisable to now take some of these people who are stakeholders and actually have them sit down with the legislative body and formulate, because maybe they might come up with something that's totally different, that might be workable, that we can find an answer. Because who is this going to benefit? We got to benefit the people that are not getting one paycheck. We got to benefit the people who are out of work. Who would know that better than them? I think, in some ways, we're sort of trying to make up their minds. And yet, I'm fortunate. I know a lot of others are not fortunate. So it'll kind of be beneficial to look through their lenses, I think, and see through their lenses what they're faced with. But because I'm trying to understand how we're going to open up, and we look at travel related, but yet, if everybody wants to follow the CDC, says, hey, I follow the CDC, though, so don't blame me if I'm not traveling, because they told me don't travel. Okay, so what are we left with? Our numbers not going up anyway. So now where do we move from there? That's why I posed the question earlier that way.
Charlie, let me just say one thing about Kauai, and Kauai has got this right, is their checking out of the airport. Their checking is very strict. Every single passenger is screened. And I believe, we had a case reported today right on Kauai. I'm just glad that we're catching them. And it reflects that the spread hasn't occurred because those numbers stay there, stay at 1, stay at 0, or maybe family. So we're doing something right on Kauai right now, but now it's just a matter of allowing more people to go through that checking system.
Nate, Dee, I agree with you 100%. But this is where I think the pain might be experienced. Every island has to buy, like Jimmy said, when we're going to compare numbers, every island has to buy in so it works together for all islands. Because it's not only about trans-Pacific traveler coming in from the mainland. It can be inter-island hops from another island that if they don't catch it right, and they want to end up on Kauai before they go back to the mainland, that we can be the bearer of bad news, because we're going to get stung, right? And so I think that's how everything needs to formulate and play out with this whole thing. Hopefully. But, I agree with, Representative Tokioka that I didn't know about these numbers that's presented. But again, let's look at how the DOH was in the early on stages. They would be releasing numbers about the infections, right? Come to find out, now the infections are 2 days behind. So nobody really knows what numbers do we trust that's being released. So, today you look at the numbers, they're really low. Today is Tuesday. That speaks for the weekend numbers. But whoever tallies numbers like that, you try to tell an accountant when you're in a casino and you're trying to count all the change that you made that day, it says, well, this is what we had, but this is actually for last week. It's not about today, what we took in. I mean, is that fair? You know, we have these problems. We're gonna
I
have
agree with you, Charlie. I think what happened, from what I was told anyway, is that they were getting the numbers wrong. So they wanted to get that extra time to get the number right. Does that make sense? No. But the numbers was wrong. So they had to do something to get the numbers right. And I'm a lot more confident with their numbers now. I spent a lot of time talking to General Hara about that. When he took over, he said, this is a full, a safer way for us to get the right numbers. So I'd rather get the right numbers than the wrong numbers, that's for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that hour went by really quick, and I respect you guys' time, so I'm gonna, we're gonna end it. But I will want to give you guys each some time to share with your constituents that are watching, or all of our viewers. Um, we'll go backwards the other way. Jimmy, you go first.
Okay. Okay. Well, Mel and Charlie, thank you so much. I told you folks this before when I was on your show, and I'll tell you this again. What you guys do for the island of Kauai, and not only for Kauai, globally, and all over the place, because people watch. I know. I don't think we would have as much emails and calls to the office on a number of bills that you folks, or a number of issues that you folks talk about on your show, if it wasn't for your viewership and everybody watching. So I want to say to everybody who does watch that what you say and what you communicate with us does work. For most of you who have emailed me or called me or texted me, I'm going to call you back, and sometimes you're going to like the answer I give, and sometimes you're not going to like the answer I give, but I will always do my homework, and I will always make sure that the concerns and the people of Kauai come first. To everybody that does not agree with me on being opposed to HB 1286, and there were many in the hotel industry, and I called them personally, and I knew they were going to be upset with me, but I explained to them. I will just say to you that I don't take these decisions lightly. I come from the industry. I want to open travel. I want to open it safely, and that's my focus, is to make sure that we can get the people back in the hotels and all over the island, because the hotel industry affects a lot of other things. So please don't think that I don't care about your jobs, because I do. I just want to make sure that when we get everything open, that everybody is safe, because we all have kupunas, we all have aunties, uncles, and family members who live here, some of them in high-risk categories, and I certainly don't want to lose any loved ones. And we're fortunate. Mayor Kawakami took a stand, and he's keeping Kauai safe. So I've supported him for that. And hopefully we can open up some of these other things with the less expensive testing. And I do appreciate everything that you guys allow us to share on your show. So thank you very much, Charlie. Mel, thank you very much.
Thank you, Jimmy. Nadine.
Thank you, Charlie and Mel, for inviting all of us to this show and having this important conversation. I think one of the points you made, Mel, earlier was that in one of the charts is that people are not traveling because of the CDC guidance, but also people don't want to get on an airplane right now. That is a big barrier to the numbers. And I think your numbers show that, even with safe travel opening up, the numbers coming to Hawaii are generally very low. And I think it's going to be that way until people feel comfortable getting on an airplane. I'm not that optimistic that this bill is going to pass through this session. So there's a lot of steps along the way. As you guys know, there's 2,000 to 3,000 pieces of bills that come through each session, and maybe lucky if 200 to 300 will pass, will go to the very end. But I believe there's going to be a need for the Safe Travels program to the end of the year, maybe longer. I think until we get guidance from the CDC that once you're vaccinated, you're okay, you're not going to be carrying this virus. Until we get that, we're going to need the Safe Travels program. And I think we want to be very careful about even if you're vaccinated, whether you can still carry the virus. So but I have to also acknowledge that taking on this policy has huge consequences. And, we're borrowing $700 million, or we did last year, to help pay for the unemployment benefits so people can continue to get the state portion of the benefits. And we may need to borrow more in order to continue that until this, people can get back to work. So there are huge consequences. And not only, Dee mentioned earlier, there's, people who are on unemployment. But when you're on unemployment, you also lose your health benefits. So that's a huge additional cost to government now to assist those families. So, when we start making, we're going to have to do major budget cuts. At some point, who knows, we may have to do furloughs. When we cut social services, these are some of the trade-offs we're making, right? Because we don't have the income, the revenues to pay for these things. And people just need to be aware when it happens, this is the trade-off. When you said, Mel, earlier, we just finding that balance, this is the balance, right? And so the bill will be before the Judiciary Committee. Both Rep. Tokioka and myself sit on that committee. Both of us, voted no on this bill on the floor. I'm planning to continue that voting no on this bill. But I see the other side. We're hearing more voices from very concerned business owners. And so I'm happy to hear that Rep. Tokioka is, looking at some alternatives. Others are looking at alternatives. And I think we all got to work together to get us out of this and find a way forward. So thank you so much, you guys, for allowing us to have this conversation.
Thank you, Dee.
Okay, Mel, Charlie, thank you so much for this. And like I said, this bill is what generates these discussions. This bill helps bring stakeholders to the conversation. We gotta help each other figure out how we can work this out. Like the bill says, public health is entwined with economic health, and the two cannot be separated. Loss of job, loss of healthcare. Poverty is the largest determinant of health, and we haven't been talking about that. All of the struggling families, many have moved away already. I see properties coming up for sale all over the island, and let me tell you, they're being bought up quick. And we know what's the effect of that. But what really hurts me the most right now is the stigma that is put on us who travel, whether we work or whether we travel for anything, medical, family, whatever. If people here on Kauai, people hear that you have been traveling, they backpedal just a little bit because they're like, whoa, did she bring the virus in, or did that person bring the virus in? Until you tell them, oh, I tested, I'm okay, I test every week, then they're kind of okay, fine. But believe it or not, I have had many criticisms about people who feel that I should not be out in public because I travel so much. And that really hurts me the most. But thank you very much for having this. And you're still my checkers and pogo pogo.
I don't know
Thank
who's
you.
Pogo Pog.
I guess it's me, Charlie. Until tomorrow. Charlie.
Well, first of all, as always, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Representative Morikawa, Representative Nakamura, and Representative Tokioka for being on with us tonight. To our viewers, if you haven't learned this lesson, I'm one that I learned it tonight, and that is having a discussion, whether it meets your expectation or not, but just being involved in the discussion is a start to problem solve. We may not hit the bowling pins at the right angle to get that strike every time, but with enough practice. And I know some of you will say, but Uncle Charlie, we've been at this for 11 months. This entire country has, okay? Some places are worse off, but I don't want to compare that. We have our own problems here in Hawaii. And like I said, as a stakeholder, you guys have a mouth. I hear a lot of times give lip service. I've heard that. I've even been told, Uncle Charlie, you need lip service. I says, well, at least I try to find a solution, but I'm not the politician. I can maybe bring it to the table and hopefully somebody will listen. And just because it doesn't match up to the way you want it to match up, we all got to find that balance. Maybe a little of each might be better than just all of one and none of the others. Maybe we got to take little of each to accomplish that goal. So I hope and pray that tonight was a learning curve, and that I definitely know that we'll have many more sessions to talk about this, because truly we need to save our businesses. But again, how do we do it? Just by opening up and um, not worrying about the safety of others, because you know what? I still worry about our kapunas. I still worry if whether or not they can outrun this virus. We're getting them vaccinated now. The jury is out on whether the vaccination will prevent transmission. That's what we're keeping an eye on. So until something can be said about that, there is always a danger. Okay. So hope you had a nice time on the show tonight. Mel.
Thanks, Charlie. Thank you all. Dee, Nadine, Jimmy, I appreciate you guys spending an hour with us or a little more. Um, Dee, I know, it's as part of being a legislator, yeah, you introduce a bill to start the discussion because you need the bill to start the discussion, and then the criticism starts flying. I'm well aware of that, and I appreciate you for doing that and standing up for what you believe. That's awesome. Um, like yourself, the stigma. You mentioned the stigma about traveling. Well, there's a stigma, and I'm seeing it's very active on our thread here. That if you support 1286, then you hate safety, and if you don't support 1286, then you hate business. That's just simply not the case, people. There's no right or wrong. I mean, this is a possible solution, and I think it all deserves to be vetted. And people can agree to disagree. So I see some of the comments, and it's hurtful. No one got bumped tonight or blocked. Some got close, but I mean, really, let's have the discussion and let's get the best thing for the people of the state. Uh, the CDC guidelines. I think I posted Dr. Osterholm's video today, his recent video about the concern for the variants. I think we all got to be aware of that. We all got to be aware that, in fact, he's predicting the next surge is going to be worse than the last surge. And so we got to be cognizant of that as well. But, we have our lieutenant governor every morning telling everybody, and sometimes in the mid morning, telling everybody that you get your second shot, you got total immunity. Not true. So I think the mixed messages that people get, Dee, you talked about how some of our people are really taking it easy because the numbers are low on Kauai. Well, that kinds of information where you basically sugarcoating this thing. And I saw my good friend over here telling me that we back to fear mongering again, whatever. It is what it is. But the people that are hearing these messages that, hey, we're all good, it's all groovy, they tend to not wear the mask or not social distance because they think it's all good and it's groovy. So I think the message has to be consistent. And CDC, whether you agree or not, they seem to be the central point for the science part of it anyway. So anyway, again, thank you guys. We appreciate you guys so much. I know you guys are busy and working hard. Anytime you guys want to come on, share, update, just let us know. You guys have an open invitation to this show anytime you want. We appreciate you guys a lot. Okay. To our viewers, thank you very much. Thank you for most of you for being nice and polite. We'll see you guys tomorrow night. Tomorrow night we have Minnie Cole, consultant from South Korea, will be on to give us an update of what's going on in Korea and what they're doing to battle COVID-19 up there in South Korea. So see you guys tomorrow night, 7 o'clock. We love you guys. God bless. Take care. Stay safe. Aloha.